morning. Thanks for coming back to Real Estate Insiders. We're here with Glenn Gromann from Center Realty Associates. He's an expert in tax appeals and teaching people and how to save money on their real estate taxes. So you're going to want to hear all this. So Glenn, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me back, Dan.
So tell us what a tax appeal is and how long you've been doing this type of thing.
Well, I've been doing tax appeals for about 35 years, first in New York and New Jersey, now in Florida. And a tax appeal is basically where you contest the valuation of what the property appraiser feels that your particular property is worth. It could be residential, it could be commercial, it could be a whole wide range of property, vacant land. Basically, the property appraiser sets forth a value. They typically send out notices in August, which are called trim notices, which set a value, and you can contest that. You're allowed to contest that through an administrative procedure with the property appraiser.
Okay, so people are going to get that notice. It's going to tell them what their proposed assessed value on the property is.
Yes.
So what you're saying is if the house says $300,000 value and their millage rate is 3%, they're paying 3% on that amount, and you want to reduce that $300,000.
Correct. Sometimes the property appraiser does things sort of in an arbitrary manner, or they set values which are not exactly correct. For example, if your house is assessed at $300,000, but 5 of the same type houses in your development have recently sold for $260,000, that's really the basis for an appeal. And the way that you do an appeal is basically you can go online to the property appraiser's website. Just got to go on Google, put Palm Beach County Property Appraiser or Broward County Property Appraiser, and then they'll show you the form and the procedure by which you file an online appeal.
Right. So essentially you're trying to reduce the value because that for every dollar you can reduce it, that's going to be money saved on taxes on that particular value. So can you do that for any kind of property?
Yes, you can do it for vacant land, you can do it for commercial property, and you can do it for residential property. Almost any type of property you can do it. And when you get to commercial property, some of which are valued in the millions, you can save an awful lot on taxes if you understand how the process works. A lot of people just, they may be investors and they may be very savvy and they may own, we've owned this piece of property for 20 years and for whatever reason, your piece of vacant land suddenly has an assessment that goes from $1 million to $2 million.
Right.
Well, that's a 50% tax increase, all things considered.
Sure. And I suppose that people that own a property for a long period of time, they're used to just getting the tax bill, not looking at it, and writing the check or having the money come out of their escrow account, so they're not even really paying attention.
Exactly.
I don't blame them.
You really need to look at values, and you really need to pay attention to exactly what's coming in the mail. And you can also go look online. If you go to the property appraiser's website, you can search your property by address or by ownership, and it'll give you what the prior year's assessment was, so you can compare it to the current year's assessment.
Right, so I guess it's also something you have to look at when we went through declining markets, when values should have come down and maybe it wasn't reflected on the tax roll.
Correct. We've just recently gone through basically a real estate depression, particularly as far as commercial property is concerned. And in some instances, people who have owned office buildings or shopping centers or shopping plazas have lost a lot of tenants.
Right.
But their taxes remain the same, even though their income is less. Now, if you understand how commercial property is valued, property is valued based on income.
Right.
If you've received a significant reduction in income because you've lost tenants, perhaps 30 or 40%, then the value of your property should be reduced accordingly. A lot of people don't realize that. Sure, they have enough money to pay their mortgage, they have enough money to carry the property, but they don't realize that they can actually get a tax reduction based on the lower income that the property is throwing.
That's great information, because obviously the county doesn't know if you lost tenants until you tell them.
Correct.
Right?
And really, technically speaking, a commercial property is only worth as much as the income it produces.
Right.
Theoretically, if you have no income, your commercial property is worth zero, which is unlike a residential property. So that's resale value, empty. Commercial property has very little resale value when it's empty.
Right, absolutely. That's really interesting. So another thing I guess we need to pay attention to is, as homeowners, we don't get those notices until August. And if we don't open our mail right away or pay attention, when's the deadline to when you have to have these things filed?
Dan, there's a very short window. In Palm Beach County, your deadline to file an appeal online is September 16th. You may not get your trim notice or your proposed tax notice or assessment until the middle or late August.
Right.
And so people are away, people are on vacation, and a lot of people miss the deadline. And again, there are a lot of arbitrary increases in real property taxes which just sort of happen. I mean, I own a villa in Boca Raton, and for whatever reason, the property appraiser feels it's worth $30,000 more this year than it did last year, where the market really hasn't reached that.
Right.
So I'm going to go online, I'm going to file a tax appeal. Now, two critical things that are important when you file a tax appeal, and that is, how do you prove what you think the value is? And typically what that's done is two ways. In commercial property, you go out and hire an appraiser to analyze the income stream and say what the property is worth.
Right.
Residential, you can hire an appraiser as well, but if you can go to a realtor and get sales comps and say, hey, listen, you go to your friendly realtor and say, hey, listen, go out and tell me what homes have sold in my development. Right. They'll pull some sales comps, and you can actually, that's evidence that you send into the property appraiser and say, listen, my house is not worth $300,000, it's worth $260,000. And a lot of times the property appraiser's office will simply call you up and say, yeah, we agree with you, and it's a done deal, and they'll send you notices to sign, and your taxes are actually reduced. The assessment is reduced.
And for those people out there in the real estate business, you can really think of it as a way to reach out to your neighborhood. If you're contacting your neighbors and telling them, I have information that may reduce what you pay in real estate taxes every year.
That's a great point, Dan. A lot of times, if you're part of a property owners association, single-family homes, you can actually file these appeals en masse. You get the neighbors together, you all hire an appraiser, and then you all file your appeals online, and then you can use the same appraisal to say, listen, out of these 105 homes, the 3-2 home is not worth $300,000. It's worth $260,000. So and the more people that are sort of taking that approach, the better chance you have of actually winning, because you're substantiating things from a lot of different angles and from different people.
And does this affect your homestead exemptions or anything else?
It does not. It does not. All it does is reduce the assessment, and your tax is based on your assessment. Now, the county can still raise your millage rate, which means your taxes might not go down as much as you think by reducing the assessment. But typically, if you can reduce if you have a $300,000 home and you reduce your assessment to $200,000, that's a 33% reduction, and that's a lot of taxes.
And then your other exemptions would come off of that. Whether you've got military exemptions, a homestead exemption.
Exactly, the $25,000 homestead exemption or the 55 and older exemption, they come off whatever that value is determined going down the road. And so it's a good opportunity to save on taxes. And typically, if you do a tax appeal and you are successful, the property appraiser will not change your assessment typically for 2 or 3 years afterwards. So it freezes your taxes.
So how far back does it go?
Well, when you do a tax appeal, it's based on the value of your property as of January 1st of the taxable year.
So if I get my letter in September,
if you get your letter in September, no, it's for if you get your letter in August of 2013, it's what the value of your home or commercial property was as of January 1st,
2013, not the January coming up.
There's a look back period. Gotcha. So that could be beneficial or it could be detrimental depending on what the income stream was of your property, or if you had no tenants on January 1st, 2013. That's what they're going to base the appeal off of, not the fact that you might have gotten 2 or 3 new tenants like in September or October or August or whenever. So it kind of helps you in some ways or hurts you in other ways. If you've lost all your tenants between January 1st and, say, September 16th, you know what I mean? They're only looking at what the state of the property was as far as January 1st is concerned.
Well, let me ask you something now, because obviously I'm more familiar with residential property than I am with commercial. So if you've had it reassessed because you lost half your tenants, going forward, how does it go back up? you don't go to the county and say, by the way, I'm all fully loaded with tenants now, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, typically you don't tell the county that. It's whatever the strike price is as far as the assessment is concerned, and that works forward, unless there's some change in valuation for the area as a whole.
Right. So my point being that once you get that reduction, that may be something you're going to benefit from that year after year after year, not just that 1 year.
More than likely, you're going to benefit for 2 to 3 years where the assessment will be frozen.
Okay. Now, what happens on residential property if someone's got their property homesteaded and they're capped at their 3% a year for their real estate taxes going up, right?
Right.
So if they get it reduced, does that bring their cap down too?
It brings the assessment down, and the cap is based on whatever the assessment is.
Right.
So you have a double benefit.
Sure. So, by the same token, they're going to benefit year after year after year because that cap is now starting at a lower value.
Now, there are some pitfalls of doing tax appeals that you have to know. The first thing is that you have to be current on your taxes.
Right.
Okay. And second of all, you actually have to own your property in order to do a tax appeal.
So tenant
you can't be a tenant. Now, in some commercial situations, a tenant can actually represent the owner, but you have to have permission to do that. If you appeal your taxes, they have to be current. What typically happens is that once you get a reduction in the assessment and the taxes are paid, you'll get a refund that usually the following summer, like in June or July, is when you get your refund for an appeal that you might do in December or January.
Right.
So eventually it'll work its way through. You'll get a check in the mail from the property appraiser.
What's better than that?
Or from the tax collector. Yes. Nothing better than getting checks from the government.
Now, I know you mentioned that you can do this yourself. You can go on the county website, the property appraiser's website, and the forms are on there, and the phone numbers and all that. I've been to that website. For a homeowner or a property owner to do that all themselves and get the comparable sales and get the backup documentation to submit to the county, I don't know if that's for everybody. So you've actually will do that for people.
Yes, we do that primarily for commercial, but we'll do higher end residential homes worth $1 million or more. Basically, what we do is we will guide the process. We will get the right appraiser. We will find other things that may affect valuation. For example, I'm working on a piece of commercial land which has pilings in it that have to be removed. It's going to cost $1 million to remove the pilings in order to do a redevelopment. Well, that reduces the value of the property by $1 million in addition to the prior sale that was recorded.
So it sounds like there's a lot of things involved that everybody wouldn't think of. So please take a minute, tell everybody how they can reach you with either questions about the process or getting in touch with you about having you do it for them to see if they can save some money.
We have a website which is Center Realty Associates, www.center-realty.com, which you can reach us. Our phone number is 561-900-9024. You can reach me. And again, we do tax appeals primarily in Palm Beach and Broward County, both residential and commercial. And we'll be happy to help you out or point you in the right direction.
Yeah, really, once you get a look at your proposed taxes for this year, it doesn't make any sense to not get in touch with Glenn and have him give you some advice how you should move forward if there's an opportunity there for you to save money year after year after year by changing the assessed value of your property. Glenn, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure seeing you. Thank you very much.